New tonight, President Biden ordering the U.S. intelligence community to dig deeper into the origins of COVID-19, asking officials to, quote, redouble their efforts and report back to him in 90 days. Biden's request comes just after the Wall Street Journal first reported that 3 workers at a lab in Wuhan sought hospital care a month before China disclosed the first confirmed case of COVID, which has helped fuel the debate over how exactly the pandemic started. Could the virus have been the result of a lab leak? Out front now is Washington Post columnist Josh Rogin. He's reported extensively on this very subject. He's also the author of Chaos Under Heaven. It's good to see you, Josh. What do you think of what the president is asking for from the intelligence community? Is 90 days enough? What are you hearing?
Right, Kate. It's such an interesting move by the Biden administration. Amidst rising pressure from Congress, they decided to admit what a lot of people had thought was obvious, which is that the World Health Organization is not capable and not likely to solve the mystery of the pandemic because they spent a year trying to do it and they failed miserably. So now the Biden administration is taking upon itself to do a second look. And one of the really interesting things that not a lot of people caught was that they're expanding the investigation. So it's not just the IC, it's going to include the national labs and lots of other U.S. agencies. So that means there's a lot more information that they could turn up. It won't get us to the answer that you want. It won't get us to inside those Chinese labs. That can only come through diplomacy, through pressure, and that will happen after the 90 days. What the Biden team said is they're going to get the questions ready over these 90 days, and then they're going to go to the Chinese and press for more answers while the WHO tries to do the same. Both of those things are going to be very, very difficult. There's a long road ahead, actually.
And let me read part of the statement that gets just at this, a part of the statement from President Biden. And he said the failure to get our inspectors on the ground in those early months will always hamper any investigation into the origin of COVID-19. And because at the end of the day, how much, and maybe the intelligence community, of course, they have a long reach, but how much can the U.S. really learn now without actually going to China?
Right. Well, that's what you see there is the Biden administration preparing us for if they fail, right? They're saying, listen, we might not be able to find the smoking gun. The Chinese government may have buried it, considering they jailed all the whistleblowers and censored all the science. And if they had the proof, they might have destroyed it by now. That's true, but what we're going to end up with is a big pile of circumstantial evidence one way or the other. And we see, as you mentioned in that Wall Street Journal report, the circumstantial evidence piling up on the lab leak side. We don't see a lot of circumstantial evidence piling up on the other side. We haven't found any pangolins or palm civets or minks or whatever. So it seems like the more we dig, the more circumstantial evidence will be on the lab leak side. Does that get us to a smoking gun? Probably not, but it should inform policy and politics if we find out that the circumstantial evidence for the lab leak theory is a lot more than the other theory. That should tell us something about how we should respond to try to prevent the next pandemic.
Look, and intentionality we don't know as well, right? Accidental lab leak versus intentional. This is all part of this conversation and debate. But as part of your reporting last year, you uncovered official U.S. Embassy cables about this. And let me read what you wrote. You wrote, the first cable, which I obtained, also warns that the lab's work on bat coronaviruses and their potential human transmission represented a risk of a new SARS-like pandemic. And you also wrote that the cables noted serious shortages of appropriately trained technicians to operate a lab like the one in Wuhan. How can these cables help inform this investigation now?
Right. What that tells us 3 years later is that there's a lot we never knew about all of these Chinese labs doing all this risky coronavirus research that we still don't know, that the intelligence community wasn't pointed at this network of risky coronavirus research at these labs, and that was a problem, and maybe a problem that can't be solved, but it can inform what we do in the future. In other words, we're going to need more oversight of these labs. We're going to need more oversight of the collaboration. That means turning over some rocks inside of our own system and our own labs to figure out what was going on the best we can, and then to set a policy to minimize the risk, because 580,000 Americans died. And if we don't want to do this every year, if we don't want this to happen again, we're going to have to figure out what the risks are. Even if we can't find the smoking gun, we know that these labs present a risk that we were ignoring, so we can't ignore it anymore.
Josh, thanks so much for your reporting. Appreciate it.
Thank you.